Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Hedge End, West End and Botley Local Area Committee. My name is Councillor Cllr Garton and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. Councillors are reminded that to take part in this meeting, you must have an open mind so that you can take all the relevant considerations presented to the meeting into account in reaching your decision. By attending today, you have decided that you will listen to all points of view expressed by the speakers and public and are able to participate and cannot be seen to have predetermined the application. This meeting will be recorded and will be uploaded to the Council's website. If any members of the public prefer not to be recorded, then do please contact a member of staff. If you are planning on filming or recording the meeting, then do please let us know so that we can ensure you are not filming members of the public that do not wish to be filmed. The Chair reserves the right to ask any filming considered intrusive to be stopped. More information is available on the Council's website. We always welcome people to speak at the meeting, although this is a formal committee meeting of Eastleigh Borough Council and not a public meeting. The members of the public that have registered to speak will be invited to speak at the relevant agenda item and will be given a total of 3 minutes to speak. When the light is amber, they have 1 minute remaining. People wishing to speak on an item on the agenda are able to do so before the debate starts. Once the debate has started, however, it is not possible to invite or receive comments from the floor. Thank you. So, in that case then, we will start the meeting with the first item on the agenda, which is apologies. Nikki, do we have any apologies, please?
We have apologies from Councillor House.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest they wish to make? If so, please indicate now, and when called, please state the nature and reason for the interest. You can, of course, declare any interest as they occur to you in the meeting. Okay, right. Item 3 is the minutes from the last meeting. The minutes of the meeting of the 5th of February 2024. I'd like to move those and sign those as a true record of that meeting. Can I have a proposer, please? Yes, Cllr Gomer, seconded. Cllr Corben. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Right, item 4 is public participation, but we do not have any public participation this evening. So I'll now move on to item 5, which is the Chair's report. It feels like a long time since I did one of these reports, with the local and general elections since our last meeting in February. And can I welcome back our 3 councillors who were up for election in May and say congratulations and welcome back. Cllr Kinloch, Cllr Pretty and Councillor House, who isn't here, but I'm sure this will be noted for him. I was also pleased to see our own Vice Chair, Cllr Asman, invested as the Deputy Mayor for Eastleigh for the year in May. I know Janice has already attended some events in the absence of the Mayor and enjoys seeing how communities deliver activities that help residents of Eastleigh. Having been the Mayor previously and enjoyed every minute of it, I am sure Janice will enjoy her role too. So good luck and well done, Janice. I visited the Hedge End Unwrapped event on Sunday the 9th of June at Greta Park, and it was fantastic to see so many young families enjoy interactive performances, watch artists in action, and seeing young children have the opportunity to create arts and crafts. Well done and congratulations to all the team at The Point and Bury for organising another brilliant Unwrapped festival this year. I was invited to attend the 150th year celebration of St John's Church in Hedge End, with a special service yesterday with the Bishop of Southampton, I should say, being present. It was most enjoyable, so well done, St John's. I was delighted to see the planters with plants in them on the 1st of May. I know we received a few complaints when the planters were installed on the high streets without any plants in them initially. However, They now look really nice with a range of colourful all year-round plants and evergreens, and are much kinder to the environment than the previous flower towers. As part of a service level agreement we have with the schools, I regularly attend the Community Management Committee for Wilden and Deer Park School. I have been really impressed with the quality and quantity of programming provided by the Leisure Centre and the Dart. And it was great to have Laura Day from the Dart attend a HeWeb team meeting last week to tell us all about the community initiatives they are delivering and their programmes for the summer holidays. I am pleased to say we have a really good working relationship with the management team at the schools, and we are currently exploring ways on how we can work closer together to enhance the community offer for our residents. Finally, I am really pleased to see the youth programme starting in Botley Park last month. I know the team at Botley Parish Council have worked really hard with residents, local councillors, youth options and Premier Education to offer a youth club at the community centre, activities on the adjacent multi-use games area and outreach centres led by youth options across Botley Park. In the first 4 weeks of the youth club opening, they have attracted over 80 visits and received some good feedback from young people and parents. So that's a really good initiative. Thank you. Right, we'll now move on to item 6, which is presentation on planning guidelines. And I'm going to invite Dawn Errington, our Principal Planning Officer, to give the presentation. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Yes, as per usual, I'll give you a quick canter through planning guidelines, just to remind you of what you need to consider when you're considering planning applications. So first and foremost, must be considered on planning grounds, so not any other matters. Normally in line with the development plan, which is the Eastleigh Borough Local Plan, and in certain circumstances the Hampshire Minerals and Waste Plan, unless there are material considerations which indicate otherwise. And there may be other planning guidance, particularly the National Planning Policy Framework, the government guidance, and its presumption in favour of sustainable development, that may, in certain circumstances, outweigh the local plan. But we have a recently adopted plan, and it's only really where adopted plan policies are out of line with national policy. So we'll keep an eye on that, as the NPPF is due to be revised fairly quickly, and update as necessary. So, but we're currently working with the December 2023 version, which has some key requirements reflected, I have to say, in our local plan in terms of delivering sustainable development, promoting growth, including housing, and high standards of design and mitigating impacts. So you will see reference to all that in our committee reports, particularly the sustainable development threads of economic, social and environmental considerations. Other material considerations, as well as the NPPF, may be relevant planning history or site-specific policies, and obviously very site-specific matters that come up, third-party and consultative comments, and where relevant precedent, and for trees, visual amenity is a key consideration. Non-planning matters, so they come up fairly regularly from third parties, so that's just on the screen, examples of things that aren't planning matters, may be covered by other legislation or civil matters. And then just briefly touching on the types of planning application, just a reminder really that you'll see a whole variety of types of application throughout your committees, either fill applications such as the one we have for the solar application tonight, or it could be a two-step process outline followed by reserved matters, which is equivalent to full permission. Discharge of conditions follow on, so where we put conditions on, we also then have applications to discharge them, which don't tend to come to committee. And just a reminder in terms of conditions that there are relevant legal tests that have to be met for the way they're recommended and worded. For trees, we have tree preservation order applications for where trees are subject to trees. We also have other types of applications that occasionally come through committee for prior notifications, prior approvals and adverts. So that was very quick. So that concludes my cover of planning guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawn, for that information. Right, item 7 is our first application, and it is for the land between Allington Manor Farm, Roddington Forge and Chelcroft for a solar farm. So I'm going to invite Dawn again to give the presentation. Thank you.
Yes, you've got the description on the screen. I just wanted to point out where I think it was the front page of the agenda went out with the earlier description, and it has been amended following plan amendments. So this is the correct one, and it's correct in the report. And the application was amended to take out the battery storage facility on the site. So that's not now proposed. That was amended earlier this month. So yes, as per description, it's for a large solar farm at land off Allington Lane in West End. So this is the location itself. So the red line goes around the 3 fields in this location, either side of Allington Lane, which runs north-south here, and either side of the railway line, which cuts across here. It's 38 hectares in total, so a large-ish site for solar. Just to point out a few of the sort of existing features. So there's a public right-of-way which runs down to here and then actually goes over the railway bridge and then doubles back here. Existing public right-of-way so it's next to the solar site in this location here. There are a couple of streams that run through the site, strain down towards the River Itchen. The following pre-application discussions, the site area was made smaller, and it excludes now Harts, Copse, Sink and Ancient Woodland here, and other nature-sensitive areas. Just to point out here, this is the Horton Heath site here and here, which surrounds an existing solar farm, which is in this location here. You can see that marked on the Ordnance Survey plan there. So that's Horton Heath site, and then down here, closest point is Hogwood Lane here, is the outer edge of Itchen Valley Country Park to the southwest. And I've mentioned, there's various sites of interest for nature conservation adjacent and partly within the site up here, but not obviously subject to any development proposals. The site is a countryside site in our local plan, so it's not got any specific designation other than being outside the urban edge. The only proposed policy that specifically does relate to the site in terms of transport is that there's policy S12 in the adopted plan has a proposal for a Hedge end to Eastleigh cycle route. And although the route isn't defined in the local plan, it's expected in this location to run parallel to the railway line when the project proceeds, and that's so that just bear that in mind. That land in any event has an easement for the railway, so it's a good place to put it, and that's where you'll see the route safeguarded. The site, in terms of agricultural value, which is actually an important consideration for solar, because the government policy directs, and our own policy directs you away from highest value, highest grade agricultural land, which should be retained for agricultural food production. This isn't high grade, so it's low grade land, which is good for things like solar. So yeah, that's the sort of existing circumstances, as you can see on the site. So then moving on to the proposals themselves. So obviously a solar farm, as you would expect, is largely covered in panels, around 60,000 panels in total. So that's the blue and the orange hatched areas. As you can see, the edges are set away from sensitive woodland and boundaries. So the blue indicates the lower panels, 3.2 metres in height, and then the orangey hatching here is for the slightly higher panels up to 3.6 metres, because that part of the site is less visible, set away from any properties. So the nearest neighbours, you've got a couple of properties here off Allington Lane. There's up here is Allington Manor Farm, and then there's off Hogwood Lane, there's properties here. So not many for such a large site, but nevertheless, you know, important to make sure that, you know, the highest panels aren't right next to them. So the layout plan it's got, you can see on the key, it's got quite a lot of information, but a lot of it relates to relatively small infrastructure cabins that are like containers, which would be largely just off Hogwood Lane here. So the proposals really are, you know, sites covered in panels apart from at the edges, but also I've mentioned these paths. So we've got as part of the proposals, we've negotiated a linking path between the public footpath here, which in itself links to the Horton Heath site. So a linking path down here in green, down to Hogwood Lane, which then in turn leads to Itchen Valley Country Park. So that there's no footway along Allington Lane. It's not safe for walking or particularly for cyclists. So the path would provide that public amenity. It would be a permissive path as opposed to a dedicated public right of way, just because that is simpler and easier to deliver. Equally, as I mentioned, that along here next to the railway track, the opportunity is taken to safeguard that land. It's in a sort of purpley grey colour here. That safeguarded land for the Hedge End to Eastleigh cycle route. The proposals themselves also obviously need access points, primarily for the construction period. So we've got a couple of access points off Allington Lane for each of the fields proposed, and then a couple off Hogwood Lane. And then in the operational period, the access would be from Hogwood Lane, but not many transport visits during the operational period, which is 35-year proposal. I think that's that. So this is the layout plan that's been amended to make sure everything's on it. So it's quite clear. It's all in one plan now. In terms of design, this is just an indicative photo. It's we've all seen solar sites. I think one of the good things about this site is that it's on low-lying land. It's not in any protected, designated landscape like AONB or anything like that. It is low-lying because it's river valley. It's well screened, particularly in the summer, by trees and hedges, to the point where, you know, you can't see across the whole site. Equally, the railway embankment provides quite a block to longer views. You can't see from the existing solar at the Horton Heath site to the proposed solar, even though they're relatively close because of the existence of trees and hedges. So that existing context has lent itself to this type of proposal, and it was part of the site selection process, was to find the site that was, you know, had least visual impact. I've mentioned the height of the panels and the number of panels. Other details would obviously fencing would be required, some sort of mesh fencing most likely, some CCTV on poles, but probably only where those buildings are or those containers are, and there would be some underground works for cables, as you'd expect. Just mentioning ecology, because that's a really important consideration. So during the pre-application process, as I said, the site got, the proposed development site got drawn in to make sure that there were suitable buffers provided for the sites of importance for nature conservation, which are shown hatched orange on the screen there. Also for the ancient woodland, which sits within Sync in Hart's Copse, and the watercourses. So it was really important to make sure that that was all protected and enhanced. So we've got a comprehensive biodiversity set of proposals as well to come with the application, to the extent that we have a certain way of assessing biodiversity net gain now. It's very detailed and metric, and although this site doesn't have to provide the legal 10% that you would have to provide now if the application was submitted today, just because of the cut-off date, it was submitted before that, it does do that. So it certainly delivers on biodiversity to the point where hedgerows, for example, are at 129%, as opposed to the local plan requirement, which is get above 0. So it's really good from that point of view, and the additional planting, particularly hedges, will help screen as well. So it does all those things. Obviously, it's 35-year temporary permission, but we were just saying that's well, I don't think I'll see the end of it. So it's the longest temporary permission I've ever dealt with. So it does mean that it needs management and conditions and controls throughout. So hence quite a few conditions recommended, but also ones that do deal with the end, so decommissioning and all those things as well. So there are conditions I do have to update, and I did send these round because they're a bit wordy. So I've had to update the report slightly. Condition 2, because that layout plan that you saw was amended. It added those paths onto the layout plan, so everything they were in another plan, and it was best to have it in one plan, so that's that. But also, because there are great crested newts in the vicinity of the site, the works would need a protected species licence, which is under other legislation, but there is a process that a district licence process that can be followed, which would be the case here, but we have to have very specific conditions on the planning permission, which I only got the end of last week. So there's conditions 19 to 21 had to be updated a bit. So the red text is the updates to those conditions. So that's 19, 20 and 21. So it just tidies them up. And also I've been asked to put another additional note to applicant, which I've sent round. I'm certainly not going to read it out, but it's all about great crested newts and the process of getting a licence. So that's all dealt with now, so that's fine. So yeah, just to mention, so I've obviously talked about most of these key considerations, but really to mention that there is very strong national and local planning policy support, made stronger recently by the new government. It's not a sensitive landscape or a land of high agricultural value, no heritage assets close by, it's well screened, and the buffers have been provided that we wanted for ecology and for neighbours and trees to be supplemented with new landscaping. The access points are acceptable, they've been looked at by Hampshire Highways. We've got the new paths, and as I said, the plans were amended to take out the battery storage, which does reduce the number of sort of containers on the site, which is of benefit. So 35-year temporary permission with decommissioning conditions would enable eventually it to return to agriculture in the future. I think overall, you've seen from the report, there are some impacts. That there are works that have to, so we have required landscaping conditions, things like that. So, but overall, the benefits, I think, in terms of climate, the benefits for delivering sustainable energy and it clearly outweigh any minor impacts from this development. So the recommendation is to grant permission, subject to the conditions as amended and in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawn, for your presentation and your report. So we don't have anyone who's registered to speak on this particular item. So I will now open it up to questions only at this point for councillors. Any councillors have a question, please? Yes, Councillor Kyrle.
Thanks very much indeed for your presentation. Just a question with regards to the enhancement to hedgerows, etc. Are we going to be looking to plant those at an early stage within the construction period, given the fact that quite often with these things, not necessarily saying in this particular thing, certainly on development, home development applications, etc., the stuff seems to come in and they're just basically whips, and they just stay like that, or appear to stay like that for a very long time, and some die, etc. And so it could take 35 years before you end up with a nice mature hedge that potentially gives you the benefits that you were trying to achieve in the first place. So I was just wondering if we could try and beef that up a bit, if there is a condition on that, to say it would be good to get it done ASAP, if you like, and maybe to use maybe more mature planting rather than just whips. Thank you.
I mean, the condition 15, so we have to approve the final details first, but then it does ask the landscaper to be provided within the first planting season, following implementation of the permission. So that's probably as early as we could reasonably ask for, because we can't really ask for it before the development actually starts in case it doesn't go ahead. Yeah.
What about the whips issue? Because that's what worries me really.
Okay,
because
we'll
to make a
note
hedge, it can take quite a period of time
so,
if you don't have something.
yes, we'll bear that in mind when we see that final landscaping scheme, which is condition 14, to look for something that's slightly larger, larger in size than whips. Yeah.
And another question with regards to, I know there aren't very many properties around the proposed site, but are we going, I don't know what the distances are potentially. I can see it obviously on the map there, but I can't, from a physical perspective, of how close they are to the proposed, shall we say, solar panels. And oh, I see, right, okay. And are we going to be, I know there's buffers, etc., but are we going to be sort of adding any sort of extra either screening or whatever, etc., to screen potentially the view from their properties, etc.?
Again, we'll look at that in the landscaping scheme. I think the intention was to have a little bit extra next to the existing public right of way, and potentially, particularly the Allington Lane residents who they've got a reasonable gap, but nevertheless will obviously see across. So
My final question, sorry, I apologise, is I know you referenced it in your presentation with regards to the net gain position with regards to hedgerows, and that we were exceeding the legal requirement, etc. But in the report it says, I was just a little confused because it said we don't have to, but we have. Can you just assure me that when we're saying we have, so are we looking at biodiversity gain plus 10% or more than that once we've actually fulfilled this application?
I mean, at the moment, yes, it is proposing more than the 10%. So,
Thank you very much, Councillor Kyrle. Councillor Tennent.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, and one of them is actually the same question that Rupert's just asked. It's about the residents who live nearby. I've done casework in this area in the past. So the area of land west of Allington Lane and south of the railway line has been used for motorsport in previous years. So just wondering about the level of scrutiny that we will, or somebody will be undertaking with respect to contamination of land, because we use motorsport, so that's motorcycle scrambling and banger racing. There could be, quite a lot of contamination there from oil and what have you. And it wasn't that professionally done at the time, which is the reason that I was involved in casework. Which leads on to my second question. So hedgerow cottages, there's 2 cottages there, plus a strip of land owned by a traveller. I've been in the gardens of those 2 cottages, and the gardens aren't very big, and they face right onto the fields where this application is. No hedges or anything there, it's just a wooden bar fence. So they're going to have a lot of visibility of whatever is put there. And I just, have we had any feedback from those people? Because I think there's 3 residents, you could say, I suppose, 1 for each of the cottages, plus this strip of land where they've got some caravans on, plus the guy that owns the farm behind, which is a big area of land, and he's probably shielded from it to a certain extent. But I just wondered, in terms of the consultation, if we've had any feedback from them, because I'm more worried about hedgerow cottage and what they will be seeing with glare and other such things. They might be really happy knowing that there's not going to be houses there, but on the other hand, they might not be. So I would be interested in that. And the final question I have is, it's just confirmation. I was listening listening closely when you were saying about the planned cycle route through, alongside the railway line into Eastleigh, which is something that's been a long-term desire. And from what's said in the agenda, did you say that that's going to be conserved, so that come the day when there's funding, that we will be able to have that cycleway right away there?
So it's all going backwards. Yes, in terms of the cycle route, yes, it's safeguarded. So the space for it is safeguarded, but it's not required to be obviously just delivered, because the rest of it isn't. It needs to come all at one time. Whereas the other path going towards Itchen Valley is required to be delivered, because that's it's a short stretch. In terms of neighbours, interestingly, no comments from either pre-application or when the applicants did consultation, or as far as I'm aware, and certainly not during the application process. So
they've been made aware, but they haven't responded.
So it's difficult to know whether they want a hedge or not. But I think I think it would be best to have some sort of screening there. It'll certainly be fenced, but something that's
because when I was there, it's there's a wooden fence. It's nothing. It's just straight out to that field.
Open, and then in terms of contaminated land, there was studies done. Our pollution team looked at them, and we walked the site, and the studies didn't come up with any significant contamination, but as a precaution, the pollution team recommended condition 30, which is basically a watching brief. So if they come across contamination during the works, then you have to tell us and agree a way of dealing with it, which would probably just be taking it off-site.
Okay, thank you, Dawn.
Any other questions? Councillor Kinloch.
So it's just more about the decommissioning end of these things. With technology of solar panels coming on quite a lot since I knew much about them, is the expectation that they'll last 35 years or will last about 35 years? Do they degrade to the point that actually they don't work after 35 years? Or actually is there a opportunity that they might be lasting 40, 50 years? And have we got a sort of a thing for this? Because I would like to not want to waste a set of solar panels that are up there and doing their job if everybody's happy with them.
We haven't, the applicants have said 35 years is the time period for the solar scheme. They may need to replace panels that become faulty during that time. They wouldn't need any extra permission for that. If they want to extend the planning permission, they could do that towards the end if that at that time that's the best thing. But at the moment, they have to specify the time period, and they've set 35 years, with the expectation with the panels as currently designed will last that period of time.
And just the other question is, what is actually sort of at the end of the decommissioning period? I'm taking it the concrete under the containers and stuff will be removed off and left back for agricultural land. Is that correct?
Yes, so we'd have a decommissioning programme, and ideally see things like recycling of panels and see what it's the whole thing really. But yes, then the intention would be that it would be cleared site and returned to its current use, because that's what a temporary permission requires, as it reverts back to its previous use.
Councillor Gomer.
Thank you, Chair. Just one question. So there are two clear red line areas on the map with most of the equipment, and I guess the southernmost. Is there a need for connectivity between those sites? And if so, what form will it be? I know you mentioned underground cables. Are they proposing to go under the railway or what?
I don't know. I don't deal with underground stuff. It doesn't. We can find out for you. I mean, there is a tunnel under the railway at the northwestern edge of the site, so potentially that might be the route, or they may just come down Allington Lane. Yeah. Sorry, I haven't got that information. Oh.
We do have an officer, Dominic, in the auditorium there, who's actually, I believe, worked on the project. So whether you might have an answer, Dominic?
Yeah, so the...
Do you want to come to the microphone? Okay. So, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, so the southern part of the field, the proposals to go under the Network Rail bridge. Now, we've been in consultation with them for about 6-7 months, and that's still not sort of agreed yet. It takes, you're looking at a year plus to get anything out of Network Rail, but that's certainly the proposal. The cables will go under the railway bridge, and then there'll be a crossing point across Allington Lane towards where the two northern access gates are off Allington Lane. So a little bit, that's it about there. There'll then be a road crossing there to run a cable across. So then effectively they'll all be linked by one big cable, what comes back down to the very southern point where our connection point is going to be. Have I got 30 seconds just to run through some of the questions? So one of the questions was about the local residents and sort of, the on-look to it. So we did something called a glint and glare survey as part of it. So we had to do that for the airport, we had to do that for the Network Rail, and we also had to do it for the residents. So effectively the glint and glare report says to us how many minutes a year are we likely to cause impact to anybody. The residents was fine, so what we're proposing here won't cause impact to residents for glint and glare, a material amount. The only effect of the airport was fine as well. The only one that was going to cause a bit of an issue was the railway line. So there's it's mainly where that yellow area of panel is as well. We can either put some screening up there, or more likely we'll tilt the panels up to 15 degrees, and that will give us a little bit less yield over the whole year, but it will take away that glint problem with a railway line. So we're very likely to do that, and Network Rail will likely be happy with that. Contaminated land, it's one of the conditions there, so we have to do a watching brief when we're doing any of the works on site, so that will pick up any contaminated land, and there's a condition there for that. Hedgerow cottages, so I actually letter dropped them myself when we did the public consultation. So I spent a whole day going around Allington Lane and all the buildings around it in our big area, and we physically put the letter drop in. And then we went to the local parish council offices for an evening and did a presentation for anybody who turned up, and only 1 or 2 people turned up, and the chaps from Hedgerow Cottage didn't, but I personally put the stuff through the door, so I know they were given it. Yeah, they've not come forward for any sort of, to say, look, can we have some screening X, Y, and Z? We have had a little bit of contact with them because they'd actually discharged a septic tank onto the land and put a load of hedge clippings across. So we have already been in contact with those guys to say, look, please, can you not do that? But also, this is what's coming up, and they didn't raise any objections to what we were doing. Like Dawn says, the cycleway, what goes down the side of a railway line, that's secured. It works really well for us anyway because we've got an SSE cable easement going through there. There's quite high voltage cables already going through there, so it just makes sense all around to secure that. But we're also providing a public right of way, which will then give you access once you get over that railway bridge down the side of the land, round the back of those hedgerows cottages, and takes you out onto Hogwood Lane. And that's actually going to be secured, so we'll actually implement that. We'll put it into the standards we've said we're going to do, and we've done that in consultation with the Hampshire Countryside and the footpaths team. Panels, degradation, so about up to 1% a year they can degrade. However, we would expect the panels largely to last for 35 years. The things what won't last as long as inverters. They normally don't last more than 15 years, but as part of a business case, you expect to replace them. And again, we expect X amount of panels will just break or stop working, but you only replace them once you get to an economic amount to do. But the panels very likely could last 35 to 40 years. And then the final one is returning it to sort of how we see the land now. It's not prime agricultural land. However, we will return it to what it is now. And actually, there's very little impact on the ground. Pretty much all the frames are just laid on the ground, and they have a screw auger, what goes into the ground, and then they're bolted to that. So 99% of, by the time it's sort of decommissioned, 99% is just taking it straight out of the ground. It's just where the little bit of substations and that are. So thanks for that. Is there any more questions while I was stood here? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you, Dawn. I know you said that Dominic was coming along this evening to obviously to assist you and answer any questions if you didn't have the answers. Right, Councillor Pretty.
Thank you. In the light of recent cases elsewhere in the country where they've proposed solar farms and they've had no connection to the national grid, I notice in the consultation responses, National Grid say no objection. Is no objection confirmation that they can connect here, because we don't want to go through all this process and find that at the end of the day, National Grid can't take the power that's generated.
But Dom might have to help me here because things have moved quite quickly on those. I mean, certainly they can, it's physically designed so that it can connect to the national grid. In terms of the actual agreement to do that, I don't think that's in place.
No, so it's a bit of a... It's slightly misleading when National Grid say they have no objection. Yeah, they have no objection to the site being put in, but that certainly does not mean they can handle the capacity, as it were. So when you do a solar farm, pretty much the first thing you do is you go and speak to your DNO, which is SSE, and you say, this is broadly what sort of power we're looking to export. Can you support it, yes or no? Those conversations were had with SSE. An agreement with SSE was reached where they said, yes, you can export this much power, 27 megawatt peak, and you can import 12 megawatt peak, because that's originally what we were going to import for the battery. The problem is that amount of power is subject to something called a transmission assessment, which is done by National Grid. So SSE have said, yes, we can give you it, but we can't give you the offer until National Grid have said yes to it. We've been in the queue over a year now. It's sort of well publicised, but it's getting on for 18 months. We've been in the queue, and even when we get to the head of the queue, we've then got a 90-day window where National Grid assess it. We're slightly finger in the air, unfortunately, with it. SSE have still said the transmission assessments going through the proposed substation are still being going through. They've not had any curtailment or any knockbacks from National Grid just yet. However, they've probably not had anything as large as this amount of import go through that substation yet. So we are, there is jeopardy there, but we can't do any more than what we've done. But certainly National Grid saying they have no objection does not mean they can handle the power on day one.
Thank you very much, Dominic. Councillor Corben, did you have your hand up?
It was a very, very small question of Dawn. The cycleway pathway, Dawn, how wide is that proposed to be? Please.
The Hedge End to Eastleigh cycleway, yeah. Normally it would be around 3 metres, perhaps with a bit of a grass margin. But we haven't got to the point of specifying. The land safeguarded is clearly wider than that. But yeah, normally a path would be around up to 3 metres, yeah, to meet countryside standards. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just to manage expectations, the limitation on the path on the cycleway is obviously subject to other things, one of which is land ownership further up towards Eastleigh. Is that right? So the actual provision by us dealing with this tonight, it sorts this section out, but there are other works that we need to work on as well. So that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, Councillor? Yes, Councillor Du-Crow. Hadaway, sorry.
Yeah, I just got a quick question. Just on this 27 megawatt capacity, where does that come from? Is that a visual thing, the number of panels, the size of the panels? What, in the future, if we're going to go for 35 years, if we wanted to increase capacity, is that possible? And
yeah, largely it's a function of the area of, surface area of panels. So, yeah, you can either make them bigger, higher, and increase capacity that way, or you'd obviously have to have a larger site if you want to have more capacity. But technology is changing, so it may be in the future that replacement panels.
so is there a need to put a capacity in there as a maximum? Do we need to say that?
Yeah, I was reading through various case law. It has been a common requirement to set a limit on it. Yeah, so that we have followed those cases in doing so.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tennent, you had another question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't think of the questions before. So leading on from what you just said, does that mean to say if they, with technology improvement in future years, they won't be able to increase above 27 megawatts?
Well, no, they could get if they can demonstrate that the site can do so without, within the constraints of the site, then they could ask for that condition to be amended to with all the evidence to support
So
that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the other question is that right at the beginning of your presentation, you said something that I thought about and then completely forgot, but I just remembered. So it's about the battery storage. That's been dropped. I just wondered if you could sort of expand upon why, because that would seem quite fundamental to solar panels for when it's not sunny.
It's not essential to have it on the site. The battery storage could be elsewhere. It was a commercial decision to take that out, so there wasn't any particular planning reason why it wasn't acceptable, but it was a commercial decision to take it out.
So one of them is the land ownership. Is this land owned by the Borough Council now?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
The other question, and the final question I've got, is I didn't quite hear all of what Dominic said. He mentioned Network Rail, and I know they're very particular about their property. So is this application dependent on permissions from Network Rail?
Not that, because there's alternatives for cabling. I don't think so, but perhaps Dominic could reply to that.
So, through the sorry, I stood way too back, wasn't I? Through the process, Network Rail haven't objected. So the only permissions we really need from them is A, they're going to accept our Cllr report, which we've already done, and we're pretty sure they will by the time we angle the panels. And the other thing would be getting this agreement to put the cable under the underpass. Now, we have had tentative conversations through, officers at Network Rail, but nothing formal. And broadly, they would accept what we're proposing, which is a trench what goes right through the middle of the underpass, doesn't cause the bridge any undermining, etc. However, the plan B would be, the cable would have to go along Allington Lane for probably, a couple hundred metres. But we don't. We're fine so far as Network Rail, and there's nothing Network Rail could sort of. All our panels are obviously on our land. They're not on the Network Rail land. They're off the embankment. So we're we're really confident that this project won't impact Network Rail, and they're not in a position to say stop the project either.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any more questions? No? Okay, then we'll, maybe I didn't introduce you properly, Dominic, and I do apologise. Dominic Mackerel is a project manager with Eastleigh Borough Council and has been working on this project, so that's why he has a quite fair amount of knowledge on it. So I think it was useful that he was able to assist Dawn and answer some of the questions. Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. Right, so does any councillor wish to start the debate? Yes, Councillor Kyrle.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. I would like to start the debate by proposing that we accept this application with all the conditions that are and the amended conditions which obviously have been outlined to us this evening. I mean, from my perspective, this ticks all of the boxes. We declared a climate environment emergency. Clearly, climate change is having a significant issue, plus also with regards to our environment and our climate, which we've clearly seen over the years get worse and worse, hotter and hotter, wetter and wetter, etc. It also helps, obviously, with creating green energy, which also helps with energy security, which I think is something that we've all being made more aware of with regards to sort of pressures and concerns, etc., within Europe and further afield. So clean energy supply, more resilient and reliable supply of green electricity and power, obviously, is a really good thing. It's a real shame to hear, however, the fact that we're this queuing system and the fact that SSE and the National Grid clearly haven't stepped up to the plate with regards to the noises that seem to come out from Number 10, either from the previous government, but clearly, obviously, I think there are aspirations from the new incumbents at Number 10 that we really do need to move on with this. And the planning system clearly shows that we want to be able to have these permissions in place so that solar farms, etc., are able to come online and deliver the green energy and the green electricity that we all need. Not only from, as I say, from an electricity and power security perspective, but also to start to bring those prices down so that everyone can have clean green energy, but also at an affordable price. And my concern about the queuing system, etc., and I hope that this is going to be being able to be eased in the future, is the fact that you wouldn't want to hope that private business was trying to choke supply to keep the price high. Maybe I'm just being very cynical, but it does worry me slightly because clearly there seems to be lots of noise coming on saying we want these things to happen, we want local authorities to come forward with sites and build these things because we all are crying out for them, yet we find out the private business is turning around and saying, well, you've got to join a queue and then the grid might not be able to take it and we might not be able to do stuff. This really does need to be resolved in my view. The one thing I would say, if I may possibly, and I'm not quite sure, but when I was reading the report, and I'm not quite sure where it would go, but when we're in the construction phase, I'm just wondering whether we are able to put something in with regards to doing inspections of the fenced areas for looking out for trapped wildlife. And the reason I say that is I appreciate that the fencing is going to be high enough for certain animals to be able to crawl underneath. However, I know of applications of development sites which have been quite significant, where deer have been trapped within fenced enclosures, and on not just one occasion, but on a number of occasions this has happened, which is very distressing, not only for the animals, but also for members of the public who come across them. And obviously I'm not an animal expert, however I know that sometimes this can be exacerbated during sort of breeding season or when when foaling takes place, etc., where the adults can be separated from their youngsters. So I was just wondering if there's anywhere we can put that, whether that's in 16 in the ecology bit, whether we can add something in maybe. I know it's not a separate condition, but maybe we could add a note to ourselves to try and make sure that we do daily checks on the fence lines. Thank you.
It is in there, actually. So condition 11 is for the Construction Environment Management Plan. 11M is measures to protect wildlife. So that's including pre-construction checks. So I think we're covered on that. But yes, we'll certainly note that as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The other councillors. Thank you. Oh, well, it is a very good scheme, as Councillor Kyrle has mentioned. You know, we are looking to renewables throughout the whole of the country for the reasons that you've mentioned, and to have a development like this also hopefully well screened with lots of trees. And I was very pleased to hear that Dominic had been out and spoken with the residents that you mentioned, Councillor Tennent. So they're well aware of it. So, sorry, did you? Sorry. So we have a proposal from Councillor Kyrle to support the recommendation as set out in the report, and also with Dawn's extra conditions. So do I have a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Tennant, thank you. Right, all those in favour, please show. That's carried then. Thank you very much. Right, we'll now move on to item 8, which is another application connected with trees along the footpath between Bub Lane and Hedge End train station, and I'm going to ask Paul Howe, the Trees and Ecology Manager, to present the report. Paul, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm the Ecology and Trees Manager, so I'm presenting this on behalf of our tree consultant, who wrote the report and is unable to attend tonight. So the application is a tree preservation order application, and it relates to trees along the footpath, the existing footpath between Bub Lane and Hedge End train station. So the proposal involves 7 trees. So there's one goat willow T31, and that is to fell to facilitate development. One oak tree T32, which is to crown lift over the cycleway to give sufficient clearance, so 2.7 metres above ground level. One number alder, which is tree T36, which is to fell to facilitate development. T37, another alder to fell to facilitate development. One hawthorn T38 to fell to facilitate development, and one number oak T145, which is to fell to facilitate development. And one hazel to coppice down to 0.5 stubs to provide clearance. So it's effectively five trees to be removed and works to 2 further trees. So in terms of the location, so the site's located between Hedge End train station in the southeast and Bub Lane in the northwest. So the site, it's a linear green space, principally wooded, but it does have some areas of open space. There's a play area and there's a pond. It should be noted here that the whole area is not covered by a TPO. There are 2 separate area TPOs, one to the northwest and one to the southeast. The land to the northwest is owned by Hedge End Town Council, everything to the northwest of the red pin. So I can use the pointer on here, can I? Up here is owned by Hedge End Town Council, and this land here to the south is owned by Eastleigh Borough Council. But as I say, the whole area is not covered by the TPO. There are 2 separate area TPOs in place. T31, 32, 36, 37 and 38 all fall within the Hedge End Town Council ownership, and T145 and T146 are the ones that lie within the Eastleigh Borough Council ownership to the southeast. This is just a photograph, I think it's taken from the report, just showing the southeastern end of the path. So this is from Hedge End train station looking northwest, so you get the sort of current character of the corridor. And this is a general view of the path a little bit further up with trees on either side, so you can see the kind of linear wooded corridor nature of the site as it stands at the moment. And this is a photograph showing detail of T145. This is the oak on the Eastleigh Borough Council land that's scheduled to be removed. So there were 4 representations on the application, 2 of which were objections to the removal of this oak. So this oak, you can see from the picture quite clearly, it's located under the power lines, so it's within the way leave, and as such, it's been subject to severe and predictably poor pruning from the network, the electricity network operator over a period of time, so that's cyclical pruning. That is a statutory undertaking, so it's exempt from TPO regulations. They don't have to apply for that, they just come and do it. So as such, the tree is clearly suffering. It's a very poor specimen and is effectively in decline. And that obviously that cycle of pruning would carry on as long as the way leave is there. That would carry on and the tree continues to suffer. So in terms of the discussion, some of the subject trees are protected under the area preservation order. Some of the trees may not be protected because they're younger than when the TPO were made in 1985. However, they've all been included on a precautionary basis. The tree consultant felt that the likelihood is that both the oak trees probably are older than 1985, so therefore they should be included. So then, in terms of transparency, all of the trees have been included within the scope of this application. The trees are all highly visible from the path as a collective, so the woodland as a whole provides levels of amenity. But however, the assessment is that the trees individually all have limited amenity value. The proposal to fell 1 goat willow, the 2 alders, and the hawthorn is not going to significantly impact on the amenity of the woodland and those 2 area TPOs. So none of them are of significant size or quality, and their loss will not impact on the current nature, the green feel of that linear corridor. The proposal to crown lift the 1 oak in the Hedge End Town Council land has been deemed reasonable and will not impact on the amenity provided or the long-term health of the tree. The proposal to coppice hazel T46 is deemed acceptable. It's in line with common woodland management practices, and we would generally hazel coppicing is an established way of managing hazel. The justification given for the application is it's effectively the works will facilitate the upgrading of the existing narrow and compacted gravel path into a more suitable cycle lane and footpath. This will form part of the link between the main 1 Horton Heath development, Hedge End train station, and also Deer Park Secondary School. The proposed works form part of the overarching sustainable transport improvements which are linked to the wider 1 Horton Heath application. The recommendation in the report therefore is to consent the removal of the 5 trees and works to the 2 further trees subject to a condition which is a standard condition that works will be carried out in accordance with the British standard for tree works. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. And we do have someone registered to speak in support of this application. And Neil White is speaking on behalf of the applicant and as an Eastleigh Borough Councillor. Neil, if you'd like to come to the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the local area committee. My name is Neil White. I am a project development manager for the 1 Horton Heath delivery team, the applicant of the proposals. The application is being considered by the committee this evening is to fell 5 trees covered by tree preservation order. The application to fell these trees has been made to allow for the upgrade of the existing footpath to a shared lit footway and cycleway from Bub Lane to Hedge End train station. The proposed footpath upgrade was identified as a required improvement during the application for the parcel known as Lower Acre of the 1 Horton Heath development. The proposal upgrade to shared path forms an obligation within the Section 106, which is to be delivered prior to the 25th occupation of the lower acre. To facilitate the obligation of construction, the new shared footpath and cycleway, unfortunately we have to propose to remove 5 TPO trees. Of these 5 trees for removal, 2 are classified as U, trees unsuitable for retention, 2 are classified as C, low quality trees, and 1, an early mature hawthorn classified as B, trees with moderate quality are being sought to be removed. In addition to this removal, we are looking to prune 2 other TPO trees as referenced by Paul. These includes a crown lifting to a overhanging oak and a coppice of an early mature hazel. Approval of this application will allow us to upgrade a narrow, predominantly gravel footpath to a wide, well-lit, tarmac-finished footpath and cycle route from a safer and more desirable route connecting the Hedge End train station to Bub Lane. I would like to ask you to follow your recommendation, officer recommendation, and seek to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you. Right, so we will now move on to councillors' questions. Any questions? Oh, my goodness, hands have gone up. Right, let's start with Councillor Corben. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. My first question is around something which I think is missing from the report, and I just want to fully understand. And this won't be a huge surprise to Paul, because we have had an email exchange about this, but I think it's worth bringing it out in the meeting just so that we understand. My question relates to replacement trees and the requirement for us to request replacement trees or require a developer to provide replacement trees either on site or to somewhere local. So I just wonder what discussions we have had internally with regards to trees being the loss of the trees being mitigated, and taking that a stage further, how can I bring to the committee tonight a request to ensure that we do get replacement trees at a suitable size and a suitable number, with a maintenance programme behind them to make sure that they don't die within 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, we did have some correspondence on this. So the report, so point 14 in the report, the tree consultant has written that, given the wooded nature of the area, the impact of the pylon, easement and the wayleave, and the limited amenity provided by the trees, complications regarding land ownership set against the applicant's remit, it was not considered necessary to condition replacement trees in this instance. I also believe that because this is, rather than a planning application, this is a TPO application, there's the replacement ratio can only be done at 1:1, so effectively the starting point would be 5 trees that could be recommended under the TPO regulations. 4 of those are on third-party land, so they're on Hedge End Town Council land, so which makes enforcement more difficult. So we come down to 1, the removal of the 1 oak tree on T145. So the dialogue I had with the tree consultant was, and the report author was, his feeling was that a condition on the planning application wasn't necessarily the right mechanism, that while we support replacement trees, it would possibly be not the right mechanism, and that perhaps a conversation should be had outside of the planning process to seek replacement trees as part of this application.
Thank you, Paul, for explaining that. So this evening, the dilemma we have then is that we can't condition because enforcement is difficult, but we can ask the applicant, who conveniently is here this evening, so I will ask for agreement again, which isn't enforceable. Having said that, because it's an internal application, I'm going to be happy to go with it in this case, but I do think it's something which we probably need to have a think about going forward, because we're not always going to have an internal applicant that we can ensure this is done. And I think that from a member point of view, knowing with some certainty that the replacement trees would be put in place, I think is important. So I'll come back to that, I think, during debate, and although I could ask the question now. In terms of the 1-to-1, I'm not sure I knew that. I thought it was 2-to-1. I must admit, and there's some nods around to say that we thought it was on a 2-to-1 basis. So I am going to ask for 2-to-1 replacement. And just in terms of the wording, can I ask the question of the developer that if we were to ask that the applicant provides in discussion and agreement with Hedge End Town Council's Town Clerk as the majority landowner, replacement specimen trees on the basis of 2 for each one removed, therefore totaling 10 as a minimum. Very happy to have more than that. Replacement trees to be maintained for a minimum period of 5 years from planting at a site in Hedge End North Borough Board, provided by the Town Clerk. I'm conscious as well that we don't want to miss the growing season, or the planting season, sorry. So replacement trees to be made available for order from the grant of consent, with bless you, Councillor, with delivery at a time to be agreed by the Hedge End Town Council. So can I ask that question as to whether that would be a voluntary agreement rather than a condition that the applicant could provide?
Absolutely. Are you able to provide? Okay. Well, I think we need to do something like that anyway. I quite agree with Councillor Corben about the 2-for-1, because I'm sure I've also read that somewhere too. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, the council does have a tree SPD, which was spent for quite a long period of time looking at all of this stuff. And I know I vehemently argued for an increased number of replacement trees at the time. And I know what the legislation says X, and obviously clearly from an enforcement perspective, you have to obviously only put in what technically can be sort of legally enforced through the planning system, although we clearly have understood we've had all sorts of developers who don't plant the trees that are even on the plan within the conditions of the development brief. So it doesn't always work that way either. With regards to this, I appreciate that this is an application for tree works, but there's no mention in the report whatsoever about the width of the ground that's required for the pathway. So it does make you wonder whether or not, because that's not even in there, it doesn't say whether or not actually you even need to have the tree works done. I mean, I appreciate potentially the oak tree is obviously under the easement corridor, and I thought it was quite unfortunate, obviously the wording in there, which obviously, don't get me wrong, it appears that it wasn't particularly sympathetically being pruned over the years, which is a real shame for its sake. I feel quite sorry for it, to be perfectly honest with you. And we find ourselves in a position where it's now got to be removed. It doesn't say anything in looking at the photographs. I mean, obviously I don't know about shared cycleways and 3 metres or whatever, but I don't know, that it does seem as though there's quite a bit of space there already, without having to encroach too much into the trees or vegetation. So I would have thought it would have been a bit more helpful to have had a bit of narrative, if you like, albeit I appreciate that it's about the tree works, but the tree works is to facilitate the widening of the pathway. But if we have no idea what the width of the pathway is required, it sort of seems as though we're just looking at this on face value and taking somebody's opinion, if you like, rather than seeing the sort of, the nuts and bolts of it all in front of us.
Yeah, I was just going to come back, and in terms of the 2-for-1 replacement, so that I think that there are two things here. That the tree SPD is a separate document, so that can be applied to planning applications. So while TPO regulations are within the Town and Country Planning Act, they do sit separately. So the tree SPD doesn't necessarily refer back to TPO applications, but could be applied. So I think that's where there's a slight confusion. I mean, it's on the periphery of my understanding, and this is in dialogue I've had with Chris. But I guess again, in terms of the the actual tree works that were required. As far as I'm aware, effectively the starting point is the works are the minimum needed to facilitate the width, the 3 metre width of the cycle track. So there was dialogue, certainly between the applicants and our tree consultant, in terms of actually what was entirely necessary to facilitate the works. So obviously in terms of the application, once that can only be considered really in terms of actually which trees they're applying under the TPO regulations to do works to. So the application can only consider those trees.
Sorry, and I totally appreciate your perspective, obviously, and it's just I think it would have been helpful for members to have been able to understand that a bit better, probably in the report, albeit that maybe from a statutory perspective you don't need to necessarily put that in. Maybe a colleague, not yourself, maybe could have put that in just to help us get to that point of understanding why, in effect, they need to be. And obviously, from your perspective, obviously, the reasoning for the works that need to be undertaken, and I get that, don't get me wrong. With regards to the tree SPD, probably that's something we need to take forward out of this forum. The 241, definitely, as far as I was concerned, and I'm not a planning expert, as far as I'm concerned, any trees that are removed, I know it's very simplistic, there should be a mitigation against their loss. Now, whether or not that's to do with TPO stuff or whether it's to do with planning applications or development applications, my understanding, however naive that might be, and from a legislative perspective, that may not work, but the idea of the SPD being put together was that we were encouraging even householder applications where they weren't legally required to mitigate the loss of a tree either from their premises or on a wider scale from a development brief perspective. So this, in effect, from my perspective personally as a councillor, is that we are losing X. We should be, it doesn't matter who the applicant is, we should be requiring or pressurising as best we can, if we can't do it through condition, pressurising them to do the right thing and mitigate, in my view, a 2-to-1, and also of a sort of not a whip, but of a more mature type species. We have our own tree nursery. We are growing our own trees. We should be able to put them in place, in my personal view. I know that's not a question, and I apologise if I've wrapped it all up in that, but maybe we should look at the SPD a bit further after the meeting at some point.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kinloch.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going back to this. So can you just clarify the exact reason we can't replace trees? So these trees that are coming out, why we can't condition replacement trees on this site?
The advice that I was given is that, as I said, under TPO regulations, it's a one-for-one replacement, and so 4 of them are on Hedge End Town Council land, so that's third party. And we can't ask in terms of the 6 tests of conditions, we can't ask a third party to plant trees on behalf of a separate applicant. That's the advice I received. So it comes down to the one tree that's on the Eastleigh Borough Council land, which is the T145, the oak, which we could, but again, there's a question mark of whether we can enforce against ourselves. As part of that process, that's the advice that I've been given at this point.
Okay, so the guidance notes that we have on the Eastleigh Borough Council TPO website states that there should be a condition, or you sort of part of the application is you would expect there to be a condition to replace the trees. So if we're felling trees and we're the ones felling the trees, even if it's on somebody else's land, we should be replacing the trees somewhere on our land. And if we can't do it as a borough council when we're doing our own works, then it's slightly concerning that we can't enforce other people to do it. So I'm trying to dig into exactly. So if we felled, can we put a condition if we fell 1 oak tree on Eastleigh Borough Council land, we replace it with 10 trees?
Well, no, because that would be contrary to the TPO regulations, which states there's a 1-to-1 ratio, which is separate to the tree SPD.
Thank you. Before we move to our next question, is there anything you wanted to add regarding legal?
That is correct. It's a like-for-like tree, so 1 tree replaced.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pretty.
Thank you, Chair. I realise this application is for the removal of trees and pruning, felling and so on and so forth. what puzzles me is why we've got an application here for removal of trees when we don't know where the footpath, as Councillor Kyrle said, we don't know the width and actual location of the proposed pathway. It may come to the point where we don't actually need to remove some of them. So, which is coming first, the chicken or the egg? Is this are we going to see an application for the footpath in due course? I'm confused. Hedge End Town Council hasn't been asked for approval, hasn't been shown anything, and we're just being told these trees need to be felled, taken away, and yet we have nothing other than removal of trees. I find it difficult to see how you can remove trees when you don't know what you're actually, where the path is going to go. But I gather that will be a separate application in due course, or has it been determined elsewhere?
So yeah, the cycle track has already been permitted as a part of the Section 106 agreement with one of the One Horton Heath applications.
Excuse me, Councillor Pretty, can you let Paul finish? Can we let Paul finish? Thank you.
So in which case, so the application here is solely on the basis of the trees that have been included within the tree preservation order application. So that's what's presented, and that's to facilitate something which is already agreed in Section 106 on a separate planning application.
On this, we're just purely looking at what we have in front of us. Anything outside of that really doesn't come into this.
Paul has said this is agreed in Section 106 for One Horton Heath. That hasn't been brought to this HEWEB, hasn't been drawn to our attention. We're being asked to comment on removal of trees and so on. I find that rather disappointing that this footpath in a Grange Park North, Hedge End North ward, has been agreed by someone outside the actual HEWEB area. So very disappointing.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Pretty. I have to say, I was very much under the impression, as we've mentioned, about this 2-for-1, and Eastleigh Borough Council has a target to plant trees, and surely this would go towards that figure. And I'm sure Hedge End Town Council would be more than happy to plant trees or whatever, because as they do in the area that we have. So I think it is disappointing, really, that there isn't I appreciate what you're saying, but there isn't a condition. But as Councillor Corben has mentioned, I think there should be some sort of agreement. So are there any more questions before we move into debate? No? Okay. Right. Who would like to start the debate then, please? Yes, Councillor Kyrle.
Thank you. I've taken all of the points on board and everything else, so I'm not happy, if that's the wrong word, but I will propose that we do accept this. And the reason why is because of the technicalities of the planning process in regards to the TPO stuff that we've been looking at this evening. I am disappointed, and this has obviously come out with the questions and the debate, and so far I am disappointed with regards to the fact that we aren't able to condition replacement trees. I think we should have some kind of mechanism to either work with Hedge End Town Council or to say that from a goodwill perspective we will do so anyway, because it's on our land, the one that we are going to be proposing to remove. And we, I'm sure, would be able to work, as indeed we work at many levels with Hedge End Town Council and the other parish and towns around Eastleigh, etc., because that's the sort of borough that we are. I'm sure that we could come to some agreement with Hedge End Town Council with regards to doing a ratio basis of 2-to-1 or maybe more. We have got a commitment. We've got a climate environment emergency, which we've discussed, and we have got a commitment. We are going to be planting 160,000 trees, one for every single resident in the borough. And yes, this will go some way to it. And I know I've spoken to Paul about all of this, etc., over a period of time with regards to making sure that we are ahead of the curve with regards to net loss to trees, either that through removal because of development or disease, etc. And clearly not to have the opportunity, either through the TPO laws or whatever, to be able to actually mitigate the loss of these trees, I think is very unfortunate, and it seems to, it jars with me from what we've been trying to push as a borough to be green, but also to be progressive. So that's delivering homes. It's about doing the right things. It's about doing it with the environment, not to the environment. I'm not going to stand here and say we should not have an improved cycleway and pathway to the proposed One Horton Heath development, etc., linking the train station, because that's actually a really good thing to do, because it's actually going to get people out of their cars. It's another great thing that we can do. We can deliver that, and unfortunately there is some environment that is in the way that would prevent that from happening. So I'm hoping we can tick far more boxes than we put crosses in. And if we can find some mechanism to be able to do that, I would very much encourage us, please, to push to be able to do it. And if it does step outside the red line, then so be it. Is anyone going to challenge us if we actually put a few more trees in than we're allowed to? I can't see that's going to happen. Paul, clearly, I'm sure from his perspective, can't offer us that sort of assurance or whatever, because obviously he has to go with what the law is. I personally, from a councillor's perspective, know what I think residents would want as well, and I'm sure Paul, I know, is very passionate about the environment too, but he can clearly only talk about what the law is and what he's allowed to say in that respect. But I think, I would hope that my colleagues would feel that unanimous that we would want to be able to mitigate the sad loss of these trees, albeit that I appreciate they may not be statement trees, but they've grown since before 1985 quite happily on their own, despite SSE hacking it around with their chainsaws. I have got a couple of things I would like to ask, which weren't in the report. When they are felled, can the wood be left on site? Because I know that can give, you can have log stacks, etc., from a biodiversity perspective, because I know that can be beneficial. I mean, I'm sure Paul might tell me that might not be the case, but I thought it was the case that you could do that. And with regards to the oak being felled, is there any opportunity? I don't know how big the tree is. Is there an opportunity maybe to have a log bench or something that could be, it could be the trunk or whatever, could be left on site, etc., with a bit of chainsaw work and turn it into just an informal log bench or something? So at least, again, there's some sort of benefit potentially to the community that could come maybe from that tree. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kyrle. Councillor Corben.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to second this application and support it this evening. This is a key piece of infrastructure, and it will benefit many people. The fact that we are losing 5 trees is a disappointment, but it's actually more of a disappointment that we can't do something to mitigate it. If I'm honest tonight, it feels as if our hands are tied behind our back. And I think that's a real shame, and especially as we can't actually get an answer to say that this is approved. So I have spoken to the town clerk at Hedge End, obviously in respect of their trees, and she has reiterated exactly as has been stated in the report. These are invasive specimens. They're not good specimens, and so as much as it is an annoyance to hear that they are not the best quality, they are still trees, and so I think we do need to speak for that tonight. So I will be supporting it. It is key infrastructure. It is the right thing to do. But I guess I have another question to say: how can we do this? Who is going to write to the applicant? Who is going to make sure that these trees are mitigated? And what process is there to do that? I'm happy to do it, but I don't think it's for me to do, to be honest. I don't think it's for a councillor to do. I think this needs to be done between officers. Ross is putting his hand up.
Very much. I think we actually have a volunteer next to us, Ross. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gomer.
Thank you. I agree with all that's been said. I wonder if we might also make a formal recommendation to Cabinet that they do the replacement as a committee. Since we can make recommendations to Cabinet, we don't do it often, but we can. So I think we should do that with the form of words that Ian proposed earlier.
Sounds like a very good suggestion, actually. You're basing on the fact that because it's not a planning application that we can't request 2 for 1. because of what we're being told as a legal thing, that it should be doing that. Yeah, I can't see any reason why we can't make a recommendation to Cabinet on that. I think that's a really good suggestion, and we'll follow that one up. Yeah, thank you very much. Right, so we have Councillor Kyrle has proposed to accept the recommendation. Before we...
It's just one thing I did think of, and I know this may come across as being a bit, but could we please ask that prior to the works being undertaken, that someone with the appropriate knowledge goes in and marks the correct trees for removal? And the reason I ask this, and please don't get me wrong, is that we have had history where a contractor has gone onto someone's land that wasn't even within the red line of the application and started chopping trees down willy-nilly, which were TPO trees, in fact, actually, as far as I'm aware, and then just said, sorry, a mistake was made afterwards. Well, you can't just stick them back together, can you? So could we just please make sure that we actually, whoever identifies the trees that do need to be felled, please can they make sure they go and mark them up, so that whoever goes in subsequently and does the work actually only takes out the trees that have been marked for removal. I know it sounds a bit peculiar, but it did happen. And as I say, an apology and the replacement of some whips or whatever afterwards, frankly, doesn't cut it in my view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Councillor Kyrle is proposing and moving the motion to recommend as in the set out in the report. I have a seconder, Councillor Corben, who is seconding the recommendation and also has moved the motion. So if there's no further debate, can I have a show of hands, please? Yes, sorry. Oh.
Sorry, Chair. How do we secure the recommendation to Cabinet? Do we need to approve that separately this evening?
Okay, we will do that after we've taken the vote.
After we've done that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm not too sure how to proceed with that, but I've just been advised we'll do that afterwards. Thank you. Okay, so in that case then, what I've just said previously, all those in favour of this application, please show. Right, thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Oh, I've got two over there. Okay, that recommendation is carried. Right, thank you. Okay, so the recommendation to Cabinet, which is what has been suggested, which is a really good suggestion, we now need to vote on that one. Now, Cllr Gomer has proposed that we actually send this to Cabinet. Can I have a seconder, please? Cllr Kinloch, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you. Right.
Sorry, Chair,
Yes,
can I just say I'll send the wording as suggested. Shall I send it to Nikki?
That's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Ross is going to follow up with the Hedge and Town Council with the trees. Yeah, thank you. Right. So we'll now move on to item 9.
Chair, sorry, can I just ask one quick
yes,
question?
Sorry.
I know we made a recommendation to council about replacing the trees. Can we ask somebody just to have a look at the TPO sort of guidance on our website for replacement of trees, and whether they're actually, so that when it comes up again, that we can actually make sure that we can replace 2 for 1 and things like that under a TPO, rather than just planning without making just a straight recommendation to council? Can we ask someone to look at that?
I get the feeling please tell me if I'm wrong, this is going to be a recommendation to Cabinet that's what's happened, rather than planning application but with the TPO as well. Am I right in saying that? No, someone's shaking their head, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, I think the recommendation to Cabinet, Richard proposed it, he could confirm, was literally a recommendation to Cabinet for the replacement of these trees. But I think a look is also a good idea, and that I guess we could do separately, because this process has just felt like quite a simple application that could just have tripped us up a little bit and made it more complicated than it has to be. Richard?
I think it is. It is quite confusing, I have to say. Yes, Councillor Gomer.
Yeah, it sounds like we're probably not in a position to set that policy locally, but I'm happy to pick that up through scrutiny and we can have a proper discussion about what powers exist and whether we need to write to a government department and ask them to change something for us.
Very much indeed. I think we're all set on that now. Right. Okay, so we'll now move on to item 9, which is the financial management report. I'm going to ask Ross to introduce the report. Ross, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. 8 recommendations tonight. I'll just summarise those briefly. Top of the list. I've lost my report. I've lost everything. Oh dear. I can do this from memory. So number 1 was to approve the allocation of £85,952 from developer contributions to Wilden Leisure Centre to expand the fitness suite by installing a mezzanine level. Number 2 was approve the allocation of £14,740 from developer contributions to Botley Parish Council for play provision improvements at Little Hats Recreation Ground. Number 3 was a retrospective approval of the allocation of £3,346 from the committee's revenue budget for the 7 grant applications that were approved by the HEWEB subgroup grants panel as shown in Appendix 1. Number 4, approve the expenditure of £6,000 from the committee's revenue budget as a contribution to fund the young people's wellbeing services, to deliver youth counselling and to pilot the sexual health advisory clinics in HEWEB. 5, to approve the allocation of £4,485 from developer contributions for Hampshire County Council to conduct a tree survey of the Telegraph Woods site. 6, to note the expenditure of £3,580 from this committee's revenue budget for the soil planting and maintenance of the 6 planters across HEWEB in the village centres. 7 was to note the expenditure of £4,375 from the community's revenue budget to take down and partially rebuild a brick wall in Helford Gardens due to health and safety concerns. And finally, to note the achievements in the local area supported by this committee as highlighted in Appendix 2. Some of those are of real note, probably that were touched upon by some of your comments earlier, Cynthia, around the planters that were installed in May, the new youth club that's been set up in Botley Park with the support from this committee, Hedge and Unwrapped, again, which is something we fund exclusively, the allotments at Botley Park being transferred over to us at this moment in time. We're still working towards that transfer over to the parish, and of course the 2 coffee licences that are approved at the train station and in Botley Park as well. And that's my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ross. Any questions for Ross, please, on the reports? No? No questions then? Right, so is there any debate? No? Okay then, so can I have a proposer then for to support the recommendations in the financial? Councillor Kyrle? Thank you. Do I have... Oh, sorry, you wanted to speak, sorry.
No, I was going to propose, albeit that I may have to declare an interest as being a member of Botley Parish Council, as one of the S106 monies goes towards wet paw extension or whatever to one of the play areas. So I'll just put that on record that I'm a member of Botley Parish Council.
Oh, that's okay, thank you, because otherwise I think we'd all be declaring interest in all these things because we're all parish councillors as well. Thank you. So, Councillor Kyrle, are you proposing to accept the recommendation? Are you moving the motion? Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder, please, move the motion? Thank you. Cllr Corben, thank you very much. And if there's no other debate, then I will ask for a show of hands, please, for these recommendations. Thank you very much. I think that's everyone. Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ross. Right. We'll now move on to item 10, appointments to outside bodies. Ross.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just give a very brief summary of just what's in the report in terms of those outside bodies and EPC bodies as well. The licensing panel is highlighted as Cllr Asman, Cllr Pretty and Cllr Welsh. The community grant sub-panel is Cllr Gomer, Cllr Garton, Cllr Hadaway and Cllr Kinloch. And then in terms of the outside bodies in the Appendix 1, We have the North Whiteley Development Forum, that's Councillor Pretty. Wilden and Deer Park Community Management Committee is Cllr Garton. Borley Green Working Group is Cllr Kyrle and Cllr Kinloch. And the Hatch Farm Working Group is Cllr Asman, Cllr Tennent and Cllr Gomer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ross. Does anyone have any questions they wish to ask on the report? No? Okay then, in that case then, is there any debate? No? So could I have a councillor to move the recommendation, please? Thank you very much. Councillor Kyrle, seconded. Councillor Gomer, all those in favour? I think that's everyone then. Thank you very much. Right, councillors. Now, item 11 is planning appeals. Are you all happy just to note the appeals? Yes, or does anyone have anything they wish to ask or... No? We're all happy with that? Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much. Well, in that case then, this now concludes our meeting this evening. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for coming. I hope you all have a wonderful summer. When I say summer, I hope we get sun rather than rain, which will be much appreciated by everyone. So please enjoy August and the rest of this month. And our next meeting, it will be held on Monday, the 9th of September at 7 p.m. So I thank you all for attending. Thank the officers for their presentations. Thank you very much for being here. And let's hope you all have wonderful holidays. Thank you very much.